What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I wanted to talk about today gaining the world and losing our soul. I think this message from Jesus really puts into perspective some of our goals. I think it's okay to strive to be successful. That's not what I get from that message is, Jesus is saying, don't try to be successful. But, I think he is really putting into perspective that, as we try to become successful, really knowing that if we try to gain the world, we could possibly lose our soul. It's not necessarily, saying that, if you supposedly gain the world, that you will 100% lose your soul. But I think it sort of is saying that, someone who strives to, be the richest in the world or the most famous person in the world or the most of something in a way, that's kind of what I view gaining the world is, really trying to have it all. I alluded to this in one of my previous messages is that, I don't think we in this world can have, just the perfect life. I think, of course, that is, dependent on what a person's definition of a perfect life is. But, from one perspective, what I'm saying is, you're not going to have a life that is not having some sort of trouble, but also, that you're not necessarily going to be able to get everything, where you have the perfect marriage, where you have, just almost unlimited money in your bank account, and you have the perfect job, and, you have perfect health, and, your kids are doing great, and, you have a whole bunch of friends, and, people know who you are, and you never sin. On top of that, just being, completely, 100% exactly like Jesus, I think all those things are not necessarily attainable in this life. I think, of course, in heaven, we are going to have a perfect life. I think some people are going to have rewards and others may have less rewards. But, I tend to take the stance that, hey, we all get some sort of reward in heaven. I think a certain Bible translation actually says that we will all receive a reward. But, when Jesus said, that you shouldn't gain the world because you could lose your soul, I think that really puts into perspective, why are we going to college? Or why are we trying to find a better job? Or, why are we looking to make more money? And why are we getting married or having kids or not getting married and not having kids? Whatever the case may be, I don't think the ideal life is just a family life either, or maybe the ideal life in someone else's eyes is, having a great job and just taking care of yourself. I think God is really going to show us what life is all about in heaven, and I think, somewhat here too, but when Jesus says, hey, don't gain the world? Why should you gain the world and lose your soul? That really says that, we should have more priority on how our soul is doing. How is your relationship with God? Of course, I think we could all use a better relationship with God, as far as, walking with God and, getting to know God. And, I think we can all improve in that area where, we have to change things in our life or be more patient or be more kind or, utilize our life better. But Jesus really puts out a eternal perspective that we should be having. And I've mentioned this in a couple of other videos that I think Randy Alcorn brings this out really good in his books, especially about heaven and in light of eternity. And, his other book, 50 Days of Heaven, and another book called The Money Principle, I believe it is, or Managing God's Money. And the other one is called The Treasure Principle, not the Money Principle, but the Treasure Principle. Having an eternal perspective is really important. And of course, I think we can overdo it sometimes where, you can't always make it to every church service or, there may be a day where you don't do a super in-depth Bible study or, you don't give your best prayer that, anyone has prayed or something, or, your gift to the poor or your offering, your tithes and offering may not be exactly what it should be or what you want it to be, or, you may not have the best marriage and, you're getting into arguments and struggling and different things like that. I think that just comes with life. But, as we keep in mind where we're headed to, I think one of my goals is, I want to be a successful person, as far as how I view myself and, of course, how my neighbor views me, and I want to, be known to take care of my responsibilities and different things like that, those practical things. But, when I start a business or when I, go to college, or when a person, looks to do anything, are we trying to gain the world where, we have this perfect life? There's many examples of people who have, in a way, gained the world, but they're not necessarily happy with that. Of course, someone can just making businesses or, pursuing entrepreneurship or something. But at the same time, if we are doing all these different pursuits and never have time for Jesus, then that is what it's like to lose your soul. And I think we can talk briefly about what that really means. Is that, a person is working a 9 to 5 and then they try to go to college and then they get a better paying job and then, they go down this rabbit trail of different things to make them successful and to make them liked in other people's eyes, only realizing that, they didn't give time to God. I have a book recommendation that, I have said in another podcast, but it's called The Bema, A Story About the Judgment Seat of Christ by Tim Stevenson. And in this book, this guy gets raptured to heaven, and he is, with a whole bunch of people, and the story plays out a whole bunch of different storylines, but one of the things that I can briefly mention is that, he really sees how his life played out as, Jesus is just examining his life, and he's standing before God at the judgment seat. And, he sees how, his life, he missed some opportunities in life, and he didn't necessarily make the right choices. For example, he was reflecting on how, he went to try to get a better job and, to further his career. And as he was furthering his career, he started to let go of some ethics and some right principles. And he, cut some corners in life and just became kind of a mean spirited person. And, he didn't give as much attention to God as he ought to. And he was still a Christian, but yet he just went down this path of really trying to gain the world. And the story kind of concludes on how he is at this company, and his boss is trying to make him partner. And, he realizes that, his boss is not a person that he should try to be like. And he sees how he's just on the wrong path. And so he turns his life around. And then he realizes that it was a dream about the rapture, that it didn't happen yet. And so he gets this second chance of life. And so it's a really good story. I kind of gave away a lot of it, but I don't know if you're going to actually get the book. So that's why I shared a little bit more details, I guess. But, I think that story was just a great story that I do feel like I want to listen to that book again, because, so many times in our life we can be faced with different choices, and I think we can miss out on some good choices because we get caught up on the cares of life, the deceitfulness of riches, and the desire for other things. And it's so true. Even in my own life, I find myself contemplating different paths that I can take, and realizing that, certain paths require me to, give up and sacrifice certain things in my life in order to get there. And so, I have to, really examine my choices. And it's really God who is bringing this out in the Word of God, where, Jesus is ahead of time giving us tips about life and how we can make better choices. And, I don't think we're 100%, gonna get it right all the time, because there's just this part about just being human, where we certainly may make certain choices that later we realize, maybe that wasn't the best choice. And I think the great thing about life is that, a lot of times we do get chances to change our life, and we do get chances to, change the course of our life. And, I think that's a decision that we should all, pray that we get, and, realize that when Jesus died on the cross for our sins, he was really offering us another chance at, entering into eternal life with God. And that, the Bible describes our condition in such a way that God, was at a place where he was destroying the whole world, at the time of Noah. Only 8 people survived. That shows that we were just in such a bad condition as the human race. And, God still had persevered through the plan, and, Noah survived. And, that's how all of us are here today, is because of Noah, and really because of God, but, just Noah was an instrument in God's plan. And so, I think, speaking of sacrifices, Jesus said that we all have to take up our cross and follow him. That means that, in this life, maybe there are just some things that we will not get to do, but it doesn't mean it's gone forever. Randy Alcorn brings this out in his Heaven book, and actually in multiple books, that he says that, sometimes people in life don't necessarily get a chance to do some of their dreams and things that they want to do, but it doesn't mean that it's gone forever. That, as we believe in Jesus, he's offering us life eternal, and that, the world is, the new heavens and the new earth is going to live on. And, we know that there are going to be more opportunities to do a lot of different things. Maybe not everything, especially things that are connected with sin, those things aren't going to be there. But, as far as, things that kind of are some of the foundations of life, where we're going to have community, where we're going to have travel. If we didn't necessarily get a chance to be one of the few people that have stepped on the moon, the surface of the moon, and, if commercial flights to the moon don't necessarily pan out before Jesus returns, we know that one day, it's possible that we will, be able to step foot on the moon. And that's just one kind of fun example, of, there's a whole bunch of things that where, we didn't necessarily get a chance to start a super huge, successful business, or maybe, we didn't get a chance to, do something that we really wanted to do. And my point is that, and God's point, I think, in the scriptures, is that life is going to continue on if we attach to Jesus Christ. And so, as we look at different things, we can see that we shouldn't gain the world in order to satisfy momentary pleasures, where, we're trying to be the life of the party, or, number one, and, reach every single goal that enters into our mind. But at the same time, I don't think Jesus is against us being successful people. I don't think that's the message of gaining the world and losing your soul. It's just, really just putting our goals and ambitions, so to speak, into the right context, where we're no longer selfish in our ambitions, but we are now thinking about God's will, and, how we can love God and love our neighbor. And, and so, I think it's hard. I think, after I make this podcast, I'm still challenged with my own goals and ambitions. I was watching the movie Rudy, and in that movie, this guy really has this goal of going to college and playing for football in his college, and being a success. And I think that was good. But one thing that I thought that was kind of interesting was that he broke up with this girlfriend that he loved in order to pursue his dreams. And if we want to just use that analogy with Jesus Christ, I think that a lot of people are breaking up, so to speak, with Jesus Christ and saying, hey, I want to do this thing that I feel like it will fulfill my life. And, they're saying, oh, I don't have time for church. I don't have time to, follow the scriptures, follow Jesus. I am going to live my own life. And, that is a person that is, seeking to gain the world, but yet they're losing their soul. And, is it the best choice to break up with someone in order to pursue your dreams? I don't know if that's an easy answer. It depends on who that girlfriend is, or, but at the same time, I feel like the answer is no. You shouldn't break up with that person. You should, modify your dreams. If you're really in love with that person, and you want to build a life with them, why would you break up with them, just so you can go to college and, pursue your dreams? I think in society, dreams are just so glorified, where, people are no longer caring about God, but they're all just, pursuing their dreams and pursuing, being a self-made person, so to speak, and, accomplishing all these difficult tasks. And yet, they are putting their soul in jeopardy. And so I personally didn't like that choice in the movie, where, I don't know if she was just a bad girlfriend. That kind of goes into play there, where, maybe she just, he was going to break up with her anyway. But, I just thought that, yeah, you do need to be the first one to go to college in your family. I thought that was good, but, it was just, kind of a silly choice, so to speak, kind of a foolish choice in a way, because he wanted a college degree so bad. But, that's how we kind of let me tie this into our main topic here, is that, that's what people do, is that they get their priorities shifted in life. And, we've all been like that. It's only the grace of God that, brings us back into a reality check. And, I don't think we should be upset that, some dreams have passed us by or anything. No, we have to think in light of eternity, and that, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that it's only God who, in his grace and mercy, it says that, we are not consumed by God because of his mercy towards us. And so, that is so great that, we may not fully understand God and who he is. And, it's because of God's mercy that he has saved us. And so our response is, I'm not going to waste my life pursuing things that, is possibly against God's will, and yeah, it hurts sometimes when, we aren't able to do some things and, life, doesn't pan out how we think it should, and yeah, I think God has a plan in all of our lives that he says that he's working together for the good. All things work together for the good of those that love God and are called according to his purpose. And so, we have hope in that verse that, nothing is being wasted in our life, and that, God can make something out of our life, even if, a lot of people, don't necessarily know who we are. And so, thanks so much for checking out this podcast. Again, I highly recommend getting that book, The Bema by Tim Stevenson. It's kind of a, fictional story. It's just a story, but it has some really good points that are brought out in that story, with some really good truths, even though it's just a story. But also I recommend, Randy Alcorn's book, 50 Days of Heaven, or just the book Heaven. And so anyway, thanks so much for joining me on this podcast, and I will talk to you on the next one. See ya.